Wow, that brings back wonderful memories of when I was in South Africa. Well done for that, Ambassador Mara, once again. Now, Mr. Ogunde, that was 7 years ago. Ambassador Mara made some interesting points about Nigeria, the third fastest growing economy after China and India. Does it seem like the time has been static from the 7 years he said that to today? How are we doing in world economics?
We are not doing well. I do not even think that in 2010, Nigeria was doing well, because we were able to celebrate what we did in 2010 because we have a very low demand upon ourselves, and our aspirations were very low. If we want to set Nigeria to where we should be, we should actually go back to 1960 to see how Nigeria has progressed from that time till now. I do not think measuring Nigeria from 1960 to 2010 would give Ambassador Marwa any joy at all. So that's why I believe that it's because of the fact that we have not taken our minds back to where we were. That's at the time of independence. That's why we could celebrate 2010 like that. Okay. And that brings me also to the fact that we cannot continue to blame the colonialists for our problems, because all we need to do is just to look at the Nigeria that was handed over to us in 1960 and to see the Nigeria that we had in 1966 and to see the Nigeria we have today. We must not forget that it was after independence that the University of Ibadan teaching hospital was having foreign medical tourists. Those who leave their country come to Nigeria for Medicare. Those who leave their country coming to study in Nigerian universities. We are from Cameroon, we are from India, we are from Uganda, we are from South Africa, who are coming to Nigerian universities to study. So these were the universities that we got from the colonialists. If they are not like that today, we as Nigerians must hold ourselves responsible for ruining them.
Wow. Wow. According to what we've been saying, every Nigerian is his own government. What kind of world is that?
So the reason why that is so is because of the fact that as a government, the responsibility of making us feel like true citizens has been abdicated. The government has the belief, and almost every government has the belief, that the measure of progress, the measure of success, is always in terms of road infrastructure, always in terms of whether or not we have power supply, whether or not we have hospitals, whether or not we have schools. But let's go to Rwanda and look at what happened after the war. Before the war, Rwanda was a poor country. After the war, Rwanda became poorer. But look at where Rwanda is today now. Rwanda can talk about building hospitals, Rwanda can talk about building airports, Rwanda can talk about improving infrastructure. The reason why that is so is that there are now true Rwandans. And so all of them can synergize, they can gather all their thoughts and energy together towards nation building. When Tutsis and Hutus regarded themselves as rivals, even though they were within Rwanda and they were killing themselves, the country was backward. When Tutsis and Hutus now regard themselves as Rwandans and they've forgotten their differences, and they now say, we are Rwandans, we are coming together. We don't care whether it was the Britons, it was the British colonialists that created Rwanda, we are not interested in that. We just want to believe that there is a society called Rwanda that has brought Tutsis and Hutus together, and we're going to call ourselves Rwandans. Okay. That's what Ghanaians also did.
That's very interesting. We're going to look at that from a Nigerian perspective. But right now, we're going to take you back to South Africa, this time to Johannesburg, and we're going to have a chat with Dr. Omano and the former CG, Mr. Okey Emuchay. Sir, before we go, let's get to know you a bit. You're a political economist and a development specialist. And please elaborate on, the simple meaning of your job title.
Okay, as a political economist, what I do is trying to use institutions to try to explain economic performance. And I did my PhD in comparative political economics, specializing in the comparative economy of developing countries. And I think what informed that is my desire to be able to understand what some countries that have developed, particularly developing countries that have developed, especially the Asian countries, and see what lessons African can learn from, from that experience.
Okay, today we're looking at Nigeria at 50. The first thing I want to ask you is, when we look back, would you say we have good reasons to celebrate Nigeria being 50?
Building a nation is a human endeavor. And like every human endeavor, there have been some achievement and challenges. Recall that we had a civil war. Recall that in 1993, we could have had a second civil war. After the civil war in the 70s, in the 60s, late 60s, the country have remained united. In spite of the challenges that followed the annulment of the 1993 election, we still remain one country. But I think that is, in my view, that is where the good news ends. If you compare Nigeria to, say, Korea, or even to Malaysia, that we had in the 60s, we had the same GNP per capita. If you look at where they are, you see where Nigeria is. I think our leaders have a lot to answer for. If you have leaders that are able to transform the structures of the Nigerian economy to diversify it from oil, that will be the way forward for Nigeria to go. And the question that I ask myself every day, without oil, would there not be Nigeria?
Wow.
Would there be a basis for the country to produce goods and services that the Nigerian people will live on, and for it to also to be able to export and engage in the global international political economy in a meaningful manner? But today, because of the poverty of leadership, Nigeria have marginalized itself in the global arena, I would argue, occupying various seats at UN or at the Commonwealth, even the AU. I don't think that is enough. That, in my view, that is symbolic. You need, the hard power is economic, and we are not major economic player. Can be.
So you touched on a very important point, which is that of oil. Actually, that is where I'm wanting to go to now. Nigeria is the biggest, the largest oil producers within the African continent. I think they are ranked 8th in the world. You have said that these resources are there, but that is the main focus of the leaders, rather than looking at other resources and developing that and seeing how we can also use that to enhance the economy. So clearly you would agree that these resources are not being used effectively.
If the resources are being used effectively, about 70% of our population will not be living below the poverty line, which is about $1 US dollars a day, which is about 150 naira a day. We cannot have the absence of electricity that has continued to plague the country. You know, you travel across the continent. Even small African countries, they are able to generate power for themselves. The decay in infrastructure. You travel the road from Lagos to Benin. That road is a dead trap. I'm just using this to indicate the poor state of our infrastructure. And this poor state of infrastructure, it's not created by God, okay? It is easy to only hold political leaders accountable. The question that every Nigerian has to ask his or herself is, have you given your best?
Yes, apparently I want to talk about the real Nigeria. We are #1 in Africa in peacekeeping, #4 in the world in peacekeeping, it is enormous. It takes a lot of resources. When you talk about the history of Southern Africa, among other things, Nigeria was a member of the frontline states. We were very far from the theater, as it were. But we played a role in the history of South Africa, in Angola, in Namibia, in Zimbabwe, and a host of others. The most important thing is to appreciate these challenges. And Nigeria, as you know, is a very young country. So it's not too fair to start to make so many comparisons between Nigeria and some countries in Europe, or Nigeria and some countries in Asia, and all of that. It takes time to institute change, as you know, both at the individual level and at the national level.
Some of the celebration in the Consul General's intervention, I think they are a bit problematic. If you have a child who is 50 years, and he's at 50, that child is still in nursery school, you cannot in any way celebrate.
Okay, big thank you to Dr. Omano and the former CG, Mr. Emuchay. According to what Dr. Omano said, it's like in Nigeria to a 50-year-old still in nursery school. Quite harsh. What would you say?
Well, I wouldn't say that Nigeria can be likened to that. I think it's better for us to say that Nigeria is actually a 50-year-old adult that does not understand the responsibility of being 50.
Quite nicer than the doctors.
So what we need to do is to constantly remind that 50-year-old that time is not on his side. And that whichever way he looks at it, the responsibilities that he has at 50 will not run away. He may want to dodge them, he may want to pretend that they are not there, but they will still stare him in the face when he wakes up every morning. I think that's what's happening to Nigeria now, because the teeming population stares us in the face. The repercussions of youth unemployment, of illiteracy, of poor health, of underdevelopment, they are staring us in the face. So, and they are showing us that, listen, you have been set at liberty for 50 years, now 57. So you cannot continue to hold others responsible for your lack of progress. And that is what we've been doing. So what I think we need to do to tell ourselves now is to face any leader and let the leader know that you have an opportunity to make Nigeria progress if you want to. The citizens are always ready. In fact, they have nothing else but to be waiting for the leader who will just tell them what to do, and they are ready to do it. And we have countless examples for that. The first example I want to touch straight away was the enthusiasm that greeted the election of President Buhari and Vice President Osinbajo. People still wanted to give them an opportunity. They were waiting. So if at 2015, you still find enthusiastic Nigerians still waiting for an opportunity, what else do we want? So we cannot continue to say that, oh, Nigerians are difficult. The impression we give is that we just paint the picture of the fact that, oh, we have a country filled with recalcitrant and restive population that are making things difficult for those who govern them. That's absolutely untrue. What we have is those who are constantly waiting, patiently waiting for those who will give them direction.
Okay.
You mentioned the Hutus and the Tutsis of Rwanda. We can liken them to the Yorubas, the Igbos, and the Hausas in Nigeria. When will they all come together to truthfully be happy to be one Nigeria? What do we need to happen for that? Because that seems to be part of what we're talking about today.
Maybe I will say this. The division that's between them is politically motivated. We must not forget that there was a time in our country that Yorubas were living in Kano. Hausas, they have their base in Idi-Araba. Nobody disturbed them. It was when politics came in 1966 that Igbos and Hausas and Yorubas, we started seeing people killing themselves. So it was not the citizens that actually first hated themselves. It's those who are in power that made them to hate themselves. Wow. So, because there wouldn't have been any problem at all if the leaders had not incited the citizenry against themselves. So I can use that to say to you clearly that our division, our differences is not because we are different in tribes or tongue, but because of some who want to use it for whatever may be the selfish gains that they want. They want to be in power, and they believe that we have to keep dividing the people so that we can govern them in their divided states.
Okay.